1, Wade Bigler, John Murray, Lynn Satterthwaite, Brian Russell, and Phil Swanson. So that's the order we're going to go in tonight, and of course it will rotate so not the same person has the same first time to answer. Some of the rules are, each question will go to one candidate. He will get 2 minutes to answer, and the other 5 candidates in order will get 1 minute. If somebody mentions another candidate's name in a negative way, that candidate has an option for a 30-second rebuttal. The candidates will have a 1-minute opening statement, and they will also have a 1-minute closing statement. And they will get an extra bonus minute that they can use anytime during the whole thing. It can be on their opening or closing statement, or it can be on a rebuttal, or it can be on their own question. And they get that to use that one time throughout the evening. After they're done with the debate questions, we will be taking questions from the audience submitted on these cards that Christy Moore has some cards, and Janice Kavanaugh has some cards, or Janice Martin has some cards, and you can give them to them and they'll bring them up here and we'll have them for the Q&A part following. And so our moderator for tonight is Frank Mon from Pleasant View. I called him up and asked him if he had any opinion about the North Ogden races, and he said, well, the mayor races sounds kind of interesting. I said, but do you have any strong opinion one way or the other? And he said, no, I really don't, sorry. I said, good. I need a really neutral moderator. Would you do this for me? And he agreed to do that. And so our Sergeant at Arms tonight is James Ebert, and he's from the Riverdale City Police Department. And we don't want him to have to get rough with anybody, so keep your emotions down a little. I know this can be a little bit heated. You probably wonder who I am. I'm Linda Pipkin. I just moved here less than 2 years ago. So I missed out on all the excitement at your last election time, which you think, well, God, she's not the best person to do this, but maybe I am, because I am neutral. I've just barely met these candidates myself for the first time. I haven't burned bridges with any of them. And I'm able to put together something that will be neutral and even and fair for all of them. And I'd like you to give these candidates a round of applause to thank them for being willing to do this. Okay, we have some timekeepers. John Johnson and Carrie Pipkin are going to be our timekeepers, and they'll make sure everybody stays on time. Frank will get tough with the candidates if they go over just a bit. But we've got some cards here. The yellow one means that they have 30 seconds left. The red one means that they're out of time. And so to keep our time as short and beneficial as possible, I would like to ask you all to keep your applause until they're doing their closing remarks, and then you can applaud for each candidate after their closing remarks. And that way, we can just kind of keep this in a little bit shorter time frame. And I'm going to turn the time over now to Frank Mon.
I guess, Mr. Swanson, you're next. Do you believe the City Council and Mayor handled the new Smith's Marketplace in a reasonable manner? Do you have any suggestions on how it could have been handled better? Mayoral candidates, how did you vote on the Smith's Marketplace contract and why? And I'll use moderator's privilege. I'll ask the mayor candidates to have an extra 30 seconds. Mr. Swanson.
Thank you. I do believe that the Smith's Marketplace was handled well. From what I understand, obviously there were lots of meetings that the public was not privy to for obvious reasons because it's a business dealing. What I do understand, I appreciate what was done. I do agree with the incentive that was given to Smith's. Smith's has an algorithm and they do this mathematical formula, and if the number hits this point, they build and we benefit. If it doesn't hit this point, they don't build and we suffer. And with that, that $350,000, it's not little by any means, but with that incentive, that put them over their magic number, so that now that we have years and years and years of economic benefit that comes from the Smith's Marketplace. I was pleased to see the good spirit and the compromise that seemed to exist in the welcoming of the Smith's Marketplace, and I'm behind it wholeheartedly. I think it's wonderful.
Mr. Taylor for a minute and a half.
And I also feel the same way for Smiths. Very excited to see them come. I think it'll be a great fit for the community. I think the economic incentive, as I said that night during the meeting, is going to add up in the end and absolutely be a win for the city and for the taxpayers, even though we had to spend some seed money up front. However, I voted no, and my concern was the lack of public involvement. The deal, although Smiths for many years has been talked about coming, and I think everyone was aware of that, or most people, the use of the largest amount of economic incentive that I know of in city history was new news, and that was not at all publicized. That was my concern. And I think my experience has shown in the last few years that if we get in the habit of not having public awareness or taking major votes before the public is aware of something big like that, it's a concern that I have. And so I asked if the council would delay the vote 1 to 2 weeks so that the people of the city could be aware of it, be able to weigh in on it. I don't think it would have hurt the project in any significant way. Smiths understands that we're a democracy and we have to give our residents a chance to weigh in on big issues. And the use of economic incentives for private business is a big issue. So I would have gladly voted yes, as I said that night, if we'd taken that step to let our residents be involved. And that's how I believe every process needs to be. We can't sidestep that piece of it, even for good reasons. And there was no malintent on anyone's part. I'm not suggesting that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bigler for a minute and a half.
Yeah, on that point, I disagree a little bit. On this one, the process was done correctly. For the Public Works facility a couple of years ago, it was not. This was in the newspaper a couple of times. It went through the Planning Commission. It was publicly announced. The Planning Commission meeting did their due diligence. The room was full of people at that Planning Commission meeting. After that, the city put it on their website, not just the contract, but the entire design and so forth. And then it was publicly advertised in the newspaper and elsewhere, again, for the council meeting. And so I did vote for the Smith's Marketplace contract along with the 3 other city council members. And I believe that we're not going to become a Riverdale. We're not becoming this destination place. But I do believe we need a couple of anchors to help local businesses succeed. And this is one of them. And now you watch what happens. We're going to get a couple of sit-down restaurants that you've heard of, and it's going to be really, really beautiful and balanced. And this was a big deal. It's projected. They've got a 5-year projection each year of how much this will bring to the city. The first year, it's almost $200,000 in revenue to our city above what the current Smith's grocery store brings in. For the 5 years, that projection goes up and up and up. And so it's not just revenue, but we get it now, we get someplace local to shop for shirts and all that kind of stuff. So I was all for the contract, and I thought it was in danger of them pulling out when it was not a unanimous vote, that the city elected officials were in favor of it.
Mr. Uri for a minute.
When I served on the council before, I came to realize that citizen involvement is good, but it's not always, you don't always get good turnouts like this when you're talking about everything, and people elected the city councilman to make some decisions. I agree with the decision on Smith's Marketplace. I will tell you that in the 9 years I served on the council before, the largest meeting that I attended was when we raised the dog license fees by $1. And that was citizen involvement. I agree with the way Smith's was handled.
Mr. Satterthwaite for a minute.
I wasn't on the city council, so had no vote here. I asked a lot of questions when I knew that this was an item on the agenda, and my perception from the answers I got was that there was good involvement by people in the community, and that it was the right thing to do. I'll make one quick comment or consideration here, and that is that when we make special incentives for businesses to come in. I think we need to be careful about that. My perception was that there's a canal there that needed to be covered up, that if that is accurate, then I say that's a good move, because that would level the playing ground with some other locations that Smiths might have been considering. But we also need to be careful in every situation like this that we not provide incentives that would make it unfair to other businesses that are in the city.
Thank you. Mr. Russell?
That's a correct statement, and I agree with that. Part of this is the balance of a representative government is elected to make decisions. And the question of balance is, when do you make the decision on your own, and when do you go public? And so I can understand both sides of this. I felt very strongly as I was an attendee at that meeting that night. There was no question in my mind that Mr. Taylor was supporting the project. He stated such. I think all of his actions indicated that that was real. He felt in this case, as I viewed it, that the public involvement ought to be more, that there ought to be one more chance for that. And so I could understand him doing that. What I'd have done in that condition, I'm not just sure, but those are the types of thoughts I have as to when does the elected official act on the fact that he or she's in that position versus when do we go public. So I can understand that, and I think I accepted what Mr. Taylor did that night for the reasons that he did it. Nonetheless, I'm happy to see it come, even with the risk of the open building. I think it is going to be a good thing for us, and so in that regard, I believe good was done.
Thank you. I've been handed a question that is akin to